They're on Polycom.
Okay, so if Eric starts signing and we voice, they'll pick it up that way?
That's not,
Polycom?
no, it's your audio. Your audio
We're on
is-
something.
You're on the ceiling.
Okay,
We got embedded, we got everything embedded, so
Okay,
you,
cool.
once you're in this room, you got, you
Okay,
stuck.
so live streaming's on.
Okay,
I just
so
wanna
this
just
is
go
gonna
see
be.
something. I'm gonna make,
Right now.
Lauren, make
So
you the
I'm gonna
host.
turn this so that we can like easily.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
that make sense?
okay, Lauren, you make, but you already
Or are we
co-host.
keep the bird?
Yeah, just make me co-host.
You can see that
Can
he
you do
starts
that,
signing.
Deb?
Whoever's over
You're
there.
the
I don't
host.
see that he
No,
starts,
it's,
Yeah.
but if there's
You
good.
could just
I have to let these people in
As soon
order
as
to
you-
do that.
That's true.
All right, what do you want me to do?
This
You want me
is
to start
Eric.
recording? We'll let people in?
Then
Can
I'll-
you
And then
let them
whoever
all in
jumps
so
up
that I
and-
can
Uh-huh.
Yes.
make her, it won't let me scroll. Thank you. You need to be host or co-host, I'm sorry. You need to be host.
Just co-host.
Just co-host.
Now, we're live streaming. I just wanted to do it now, to see if it kicks off, because it was doing it like every 10 minutes. Oh, okay. You don't have to ask.
YouTube is working and we may have found an alternate route for this. So let's hope that this goes off without a hitch.
Yay.
Marsha, I like your background.
Thanks.
You're under the sea today.
So
Yes, I'm trying. Go ahead, Karen.
oh, I was going to say, so when I've tried to do a background, the weirdest things have happened to my head. It's like I only have pieces and parts of my head. So how do you stop that from happening? You never had that problem? Watch this. I'll show you. And there you have it.
It's because you have to have a plain wall behind you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This is Marcia. Similar to a green screen, you need to have a plain background, otherwise it bleeds through.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's the plaques on the back wall. Well, thank you, ladies. Now I can figure that out. I was like, why is my head missing?
I kind of like it like that. You look like a floating face, just sort of nice.
Oh, how about that one?
That's impressive.
That's called being in the weeds, right?
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. All right, let's unclick, choose a virtual background. Go.
I like yours, Marcia.
Thanks, Rob. I'm trying to get to a different place in my house that's less likely to make my dogs bark. My dog.
Oh, okay.
It's all of our struggles. All of us dog, even the cat is somehow.
Oh, I know,
trying to
my
join
cat, the
Zoom.
tail kept going right in front of the camera.
Yes, this is Marcia. If I'm downstairs and, inevitably it's when I'm trying to talk that he's tempted by anyone who walks by, and then all of a sudden, 100 pounds of deep barking starts, and, I have to try to mute. So I think that this is easier. So
I'm just waiting for Nemo to swim by.
I guess I could, this is Marcia, I guess I could Google, you know, a Nemo picture and download it and do that, you know.
Oh, I created a DARS virtual background. I'll have to send that to you, Marcia.
That'd be great. Now that Betsy, now that I've returned my DARS.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is, I just picked a logo. I put the logo in the corner and like a plain blue background for virtual background.
I'm still letting people in, so we'll start in probably 2 minutes, okay?
Okay,
Great,
sounds good.
thank you.
Lauren, maybe when you start the meeting too, remind people to say their names before they talk.
Are you recording now?
I am.
Thank you.
She's recording.
Hi, Maureen, it's nice to see you. Eric is joining.
Hey, Sean,
Yes, sir.
for just clarification purposes, is Chris Miller with DARS or is
Yes, Rob.
okay?
Chris is my support today.
Oh, okay. I just
He's
wanted
the Director of Brain Injury Services.
okay. I'm just making the notes here, so I just wanted to thank you.
Okay, we got Eric Payne.
All right, things appear to be running much smoother already. Thank you all, those of you that were on earlier, for your patience and your support. Thank you. And we do have a quorum. It is 11:01. Before we call this meeting to order, I would like to remind you to please state your name before you speak, so for the interpreters and the captioner. If you need to take a break, that's fine. Take breaks as you need to. I hope that you all got my email in between the executive committee meeting and this meeting. If you did not, we have had some trouble with YouTube. Earlier this morning, we had to cut the executive committee meeting short. Hopefully we've got this worked out and things will run smoothly. But if we do have interruptions, we can't continue the meeting. We're going to have to reschedule it because, as you know, Virginia is a sunshine state and we need to be completely transparent about all of the business that takes place. So with that, I think.
Was somebody trying to say something?
Is that Jerry?
I'm trying to figure out what it is.
Okay. No.
So
Everybody mutes.
I need everybody to mute.
I'm trying to merge Jerry's video with audio.
Does that work for folks? Everybody good? Nope.
We've got Jerry on 2 different phone numbers. And I think that's what's going on. I can't merge.
I'm trying to message.
Hello. This is Judy Jackson. I'm on the call.
No,
I'm not on You call?
I think we're good now, Lauren.
We're okay?
If somebody's using their phone close to their computer, that's usually when we get the echo.
I've seen some mutes go on. How are we doing now? Everything okay?
I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm good on my end.
Okay. So as I was saying, we had some trouble with YouTube streaming, but hopefully we're good to go and it'll be green lights and blue skies. And with that, Sean, I'm turning it over to you.
Good deal. So 11:06 according to my computer, and we'll call the meeting to order for the statewide Independent Living Council. Similar to the executive committee, Lauren, can you just use the folks that are on here to as your roll call rather than calling out names?
Sure. We have Leland Brady, Karen Mikowski-Carney, Brian Montgomery, Alexis Nichols, Joel O'Neill, Vasantha Raymond, Rob Targos, Ed Turner, Sean Utt, Eric Raff, Marcia Dubois, Judy Jackson. You also have Lauren. You have Liz and Ivy providing interpreting today. Chris Miller's in the room, Director of Brain Injury Services. And we have Betsy, who is monitoring our YouTube. So we've got a packed house today.
Good deal. Good deal. Welcome to all the visitors and everybody. Were there any changes we need to make to the agenda? No additions? Do we have any public for our public comment portion?
You did not receive any public comment.
Okay. Then let's move on to the minutes. Everybody received the July minutes. Were there any changes or edits that we need to consider from anyone?
Under the participants list. That's how I did it.
Hearing none, they'll stand approved. And we'll jump with Maureen. Maureen, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. This is Maureen Hollowell. Should I go ahead, Sean?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Well, good morning, everyone. I know that we've all had our shares of virtual meetings, and this looks like everything's gotten figured out. So good, Lauren, for pursuing this, considering what happened this morning. So, well, we have our Part B report from the Centers for Independent Living through VASIL, and I'll go over some coordination activities first, and then highlight a few things from the individual CILs. So we'll kind of just preference, of course, with what COVID has done to all of us. But as we talked about last quarter, it certainly has required Centers for Independent Living to be more creative and find ways to ensure that everybody has access to the 5 core services that all of the centers have continued to provide during this time. We continue to see a heavy use of virtual meetings, virtual independent living skills trainings, and you'll see that reflected in the individual reports from the centers. I do want to point out one thing that early on, probably in the spring when this all started, Hamilton Relay was had volunteered to do some the captioning of some of the Zoom event meetings that were being held or other formats that were being held. And that went really well. I think that over time, the word has gotten out that that is available, and it is definitely keeping them busy. So there are times where they are not able to meet the request for a free cart that they've been providing. And centers have been working together to find ways to ensure that when they're not available, understandably, it is a free service, understandably, that good quality cart services are purchased from vendors that are available across the country, really. You know, we kind of used to think, well, gosh, you got to look at the Virginia list. Who's in Virginia that's doing cart? When in fact, of course, the cart operators are not physically in the location that the center is, so the operator can be anywhere. Those types of things continue to be worked through by centers as they make changes to how they're pursuing their activities with Part B, but really having a lot of success in ensuring that everything remains accessible as it should be. So of course, we've done our typical monthly meetings, monthly trainings. We've done our guidance. I provided guidance as we've moved forward each month to the Part B staff about some activities that they could be pursuing that don't take face-to-face contact. And as the quarter moved on, we started to see more creative ideas and practices being put into place that allowed everyone to continue and expand what they were doing, but yet remain safe, both the center staff and individuals with disabilities that work with them. The first few things just to highlight from coordination are issues regarding Medicaid. I will say, and this is not in the report, that we did continue to communicate with the governor's office about our concern with the screening process being changed and the hospitals being able to do admissions directly to nursing facilities without appropriate screening. And really have not got much traction on that issue in regards to any changes or positive changes. However, regulations are being drafted by DMAS, and I think they've circulated those to many individuals. And I think that came out just yesterday, and they're looking at getting some preliminary comment on those. We remain concerned about that process. A number of individuals who use Medicaid services or Medicare are receiving those services and have been since March through telehealth. And initially, most of that telehealth that was occurring was really only telephone, not true telehealth, which would require a visual representation both from the person with the disability that was receiving the services and the service provider. And DMAS has encouraged more and more telehealth, true telehealth, with that visual representation. And many people with disabilities do not have the equipment in their homes to be able to participate in that manner. They may have a phone and can talk to the provider, but they don't have a smartphone, or they don't have internet, or they don't have a tablet or another way to truly participate in telehealth. And so we have asked DMAS to consider using a similar process to what they have used for durable medical equipment since April, that allows some of the steps required to receive assistive technology, such as communication devices, to set some of those processes aside as they have done for durable medical equipment. For example, to receive those devices through a home and community-based waiver, the individual would have to get a prescription from the physician, have a evaluation from a Medicaid provider of a service, typically a speech or occupational therapist. And that's just not really practical at this time for some of those providers are not working as much as they were prior to March. And so we've asked for them to streamline that process and allow people to get access to this equipment so that telehealth can be frequently than what is happening now. As you may know, before the pandemic, telehealth was very strictly regulated, and there weren't a lot of services or service providers that were allowed to provide telehealth for payment. And it was very strict in that there had to be that visual representation. Mental health services is a good example of what Medicaid was covering through telehealth. But those individuals who didn't have access to devices, or even those who did, if the provider was an hour away from them or so, they may have been doing telehealth by driving to a local medical office and participating from there with a provider that was an hour away from that medical office. But the telehealth wasn't being performed all the time directly in the person's home. But with COVID, we're not looking for people going to locations to participate in telehealth, but for telehealth to actually occur in their home because of concerns with the virus. So DMAS has pulled the Department of Medical Assistance Services, which is Virginia's Medicaid agency, has pulled a work group together to try to figure out how to move this forward. I know we've talked about in the past that individuals who use Medicaid consumer-directed services in some instances do not have to have services facilitation in order to use consumer-directed services. Service facilitation is that provider who assists the individual who is going to be the employer of record to learn about how to be an employer and to troubleshoot things through the process, as well as stay in touch to make sure that services are being provided, the individual is doing okay. That first was ended with the old intellectual disabilities waiver. It was then ended with the old developmental disabilities waiver. And it was also ended with the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver as a required service. The federal Medicaid agency, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, told the Commonwealth that they could not require individuals to use a service in order to receive another service. In other words, the Commonwealth cannot require people to use facilitation in order to use consumer-directed personal care. That's old, we've known that. Well, what's happened with COVID-19, kind of just to talk about the relevancy right now. What's happened with COVID-19 is that some large and small services facilitation organizations have had their own personnel problems or their own administrative problems. And they have quit providing services facilitation in some regions of the state, basically stranding people without being able to get authorization for new services if services needed to be increased or the annual renewal of their services was coming due. And VASIL was first made aware of this from different calls that people were making to the centers, trying to figure out how to, advocate for their services to be reinstated. And VASIL worked with DMAS and the Department of Behavioral and Developmental Services, who for the developmental disabilities waivers authorizes those services. Anyways, worked with them, and in most instances, I believe this has been resolved. However, what could have been resolved very quickly by those case managers or the managed care coordinators, depending on which waiver, they could have just informed the individual that they could proceed without using services facilitation if in fact that individual chose to proceed without services facilitation. It's the individual's choice. And CMAS has yet to develop a document that says, if you're going to do your own services facilitation, you do these things. This is what you're supposed to do. And so it's been a lot of back and forth trying to figure out how, one, individuals should be provided that choice of whether or not to use facilitation. And two, if they choose not to use facilitation, either because of this emergency situation or otherwise, what that process will be. And there was just another meeting about this a week ago Monday, trying to resolve this issue once and for all. I'm saying it's going to get resolved once and for all. It's a pretty complicated issue, but I think it was important before, but now with COVID-19, it really showed how important it was to get this process truly in place so that individuals can easily use it either in an emergency or because of their choice. The Disability Law Center of Virginia has a project to provide information and direct legal assistance to individuals about supported decision-making and particularly development of advanced directives, medical advanced directives. And there was an issue in the General Assembly several years ago where individuals were assisting others to develop advanced directives, but those individuals or organizations were not legally allowed to assist people with medical advanced directives. The Code of Virginia, the law of Virginia stipulates the professions and organizations that are allowed to do that. So the Disability Law Center moved forward with this project, and the centers had a couple of 3 meetings with them to make sure Part B staff understood the process, understood those issues, and subsequently some centers are making their space available for the attorney who is assisting individuals to develop these documents to have a meeting space or to facilitate the connection between the law center and the individual who wants to pursue either supported decision-making or an advanced directive. They still have been involved in an effort of at the federal level. I don't know who initiated it, and I wish I did because of how it's proceeded, but this is in regards to trying to get national organizations, federal agencies, and state agencies to think differently about how they collaborate in regards to services for youth with disabilities who want to be employed. And there is a sense at the federal level that there's not enough collaboration occurring so that individuals can benefit from services that are available. And so there's been several meetings of a group of us from the Federal Office of Special Education and Rehab Services and the Administration on Community Living with between NICL and then, the National Association of State Directors of Special Education, NASD. Don't you love that acronym, NASD? But anyways, to talk about this collaboration. So we've had a lot of meetings to talk about collaboration. We'll see what happens next. Somebody's putting some money into this. You can get a feel for how it's moving forward, but so far there's not been any particular mention of projects or those types of things. They are focusing on collaboration at this point. So we're collaborating. And they still have that opportunity through National Council of Independent Living. So those are some coordination activities. I'd like to highlight 3 Center for Independent Living items from their reports, but before we turn, Lauren, should I stop now for questions or go all the way through and then stop?
You can go all the way through, I think, and then stop.
Thank you. I know the format a little different. I just want to be sure. Well, all 17 centers, of course, submitted their reports, and it's really interesting to see how they're approaching these various virtual opportunities. And I would say that some people may be starting to feel a little bit of burnout from the virtual opportunities. But the SILs are doing a good job of trying to mix things up and keep different people involved, both as presenters and participants, to ensure that good quality ongoing IL services are being provided. The Disability Resource Center out of Fredericksburg, they have filmed some independent living skills training, and they've posted those on YouTube. And I've given in the report, when you see it, you'll see a link to their YouTube page that gives where they've linked some of these films to. And some of them are entertaining, but that's what it takes at this time. We have to be careful not to be too dry in what we're trying to present. And they're brief. So they are having individuals now starting to use those. They just started posting them middle or end of this month. So anyway, so just call your attention to that. Most of the centers updated their nursing facility list and have been mailing information to the nursing facilities in the hopes of reaching people with disabilities. And we saw this past quarter more, not just more outreach, but some real, for some centers that were struggling before to get connections in directly with people with disabilities and facilities. We've seen more of that this quarter than we have seen in the early quarter pre-COVID. So I don't know if that means just people are more desperate to get out because of COVID, if the facilities are overwhelmed and so being more cooperative with getting people out. But for those centers that are, and it's 2 and 3 people a quarter, but those 2 and 3 people for some centers are more than we've seen for the entire year. So some centers are really seeing an uptick in interest of people with disabilities who are in the facilities who want to transition, or by the staff who work in those facilities making those referral connections. So, anyway, that's obviously a good thing. We see a lot of activity where centers are collaborating with other organizations in their community to expand knowledge that the center is there and services are available. And with the Parent Education and Advocacy Training Center, PETSI, we've seen some centers doing more collaborative work with them to either make referrals to their youth program, or for them to also share information, share information about the center. So we're seeing some expansion of involvement with other organizations during this time. The Independent Center of Northern Virginia, very active youth program, a youth meeting and ILS training with the ARC of Northern Virginia. I think that's another unique and new example of the collaboration that's occurring right now. We're seeing more involvement with the pre-admission screening teams at the local level. And some of that, I think, is reflective of those screening teams themselves looking for resources for individuals who are in crisis at this time. And I just think that, the centers have been hitting them, some of them on a monthly basis, with information about independent living. These are the screeners from the Departments of Health and the Departments of Social Services, or in the case of a child, perhaps just the Department of Health, who do screenings for nursing facilities and the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver. And we're seeing a lot more collaboration there. And again, I think it's because they're searching for resources for individuals and turning to centers because they've become more aware that they're available after these quarterly or monthly newsletters or whatever the outreach is over the year that's been done. So those are some examples of what's happening. Obviously, there is a lot more than what I'm covering here right now in regards to Part B. You will notice in a couple of the reports, centers have mentioned some activity that they're doing with their Part C money. And of course, that's not a part of these Part B reports necessarily, but they're using those monies to serve the same populations of people that we're trying to reach through the outreach efforts of the Part B staff. So, Lauren and Tom.
Thank you, Maureen. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
Yes, thank you, Maureen. So next on the agenda, SEAL Network update. Is Kevin around in the room?
Kevin is here.
Good deal.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm good.
Great. Thank you, Sean. It's really a pleasure to be here again to have a chance to share with you some of the great work SILs are doing sort of outside of the world of Part B and some of the collaborations that DARS is able to do with some of the SILs. My name is Kevin Koziel, and I'm Director of Independent Living here at DARS. And I'll be very brief this morning. But first, I want to say congratulations on an approved spill. What great news, right? And the council and Lauren, you guys deserve a lot of credit because I understand that is not necessarily the case across the country. So congratulations on an approved spill. It's really my pleasure to be here. I want to share with you some work that we are collaborating with SILs on in the area of financial empowerment to support consumers. And this is about some emergent work with two SILs, but really it's a chance to bring an issue to your attention. That's an important one throughout the state regarding the important work SILs do. So what I'm going to talk briefly about today is kind of at the intersection of independent living, financial empowerment, and poverty and financial instability. And as you know, and as we know, poverty and financial instability are, of course, significant stressors for the consumers that we serve and can kind of get the here and now of instability of poverty and low income can get in the way of people planning and achieving their future independent living goals. And SILs across the state provide financial empowerment support to consumers. And so I'm going to talk today briefly about work we're doing, ongoing work we're doing with two SILs to support that. And I wanted to step back, and I think it's worth noting that I kind of looked back at the data over the last 10 years on the annual reports, and it's fair to say over the last part of this decade, we've seen a fair uptick in the number of goals around personal resource management that consumers are setting. So this, at least as far as I can tell now, is an expanding need across the state. So it's an important issue to bring your attention to. So a little bit of, we can move to the next slide, Lauren, a little bit about the background to what this particular work with two SILs is doing, really an expanding an existing kind of DARS project across the House in the Division for Rehabilitative Services. Over the past few years, VR offices and other organizations in two Virginia communities, so the city of Martinsville and Henry County being one, and the Norfolk Portsmouth area being another, have been involved in a project to receive intensive technical assistance for organizations across those communities to try to come together and mitigate some of the negative impacts of financial instability for people with disabilities living in those communities. The driver kind of being that low income, poverty, financial instability is multifaceted, And one organization can't do it alone. It takes kind of a community response, so to speak, the village idea. And these communities were selected. This was a national project, and DARS is involved with it in partnership with the George Washington University. It's a national project, and these areas were selected based on demographic criteria that made them targeted communities, particularly at risk for high levels of really poor outcomes and life experiences for people with disabilities. And so some of the criteria were things like unemployment rates, poverty rates, wage rates for people with disabilities. And the project was actually called Targeted Communities, also known as E3. And it was done in these two communities, and SIL staff from the SILs that serve these areas, so the city of Martinsville and Henry County being served by Disability Rights and Resource Center and Rocky Mount, and Norfolk Portsmouth area, of course, being served by Independence Center in Norfolk, were involved in some of these community activities, an example being a community academy, which brought together organizations to learn about ways of thinking about financial instability and poverty, and then to connect and share resources, potentially coordinate services to some degree. And so what we did kind of across the Division for Community Living and Division for Rehab Services is leverage some of this existing project resources to provide some intensive support to these two SILs. This really came about with some conversations I had with a colleague, David Leon, over in the Division for Rehab Services, and then Dale Batten and Marcia Dubois and Carolyn Turner supported this kind of collaboration. So what we did was we leveraged some existing grant resources and provided some intensive support to the SILs. And we reached out to Carol Tuning at DRRC and Nicole Davis at ECI with an opportunity for their staff to receive some training and support from a financial empowerment expert at the National Disability Institute, which is a national leader really in financial health and wellness for people with disabilities. And if as an aside, if you go to their website, it's loaded with resources and programs to support that. And both of the directors agreed. And so over the summer and fall, since your last meeting, each SIL separately received about 12 to 15 hours of intensive training and consultation for staff. And there were about probably 16 to 17 total, I want to say, who attended. And you probably know this, but DRRC and ECI are very different communities. They serve very different communities. They're also very different SILs in terms of the programs that they're using, the programs that they use to support consumers in this space. So the idea was that the SILs could use this to kind of enhance or expand existing programs, develop new ones. And as is always the case with SILs, the support, this is exciting because the support they provide is developed by people with disabilities for people with disabilities and really in touch with community needs. And so the goals really were to, as I mentioned, enhance the services available so they could use this training to build or develop programs. Also to expand partnerships with other community organizations, and then also to develop additional potential revenue streams, particularly with the DARS VR offices, because both these SILs are doing benefits counseling right now, which is a vendable service, but some of the training covered other services that could be vended, financial health assessments and other kinds of things. So we really had kind of three goals in trying to leverage this support. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds. We can go to the next slide, but just to give you a flavor of kind of some of the issues around financial empowerment that were addressed were things like setting financial goals, strategies for paying bills and reducing debt, utilizing financial products like the banking system, ABLE accounts, credit, reports, factors, risks, housing options and potential financial options for housing, both in terms of obtaining and maintaining, and also someone benefits counseling. As I mentioned, both SILs were doing that. And we've received thus far some really positive feedback from the SIL staff that the knowledge, tools, and resources that they gained have been useful. And so the work with NDI has finished, and now both DRC and ECI are moving forward, determining how they're going to use this and integrating it into some of their programs. And they are developing some programming around this. And so that's kind of where we stand. And I hope at a kind of later date, if there's interest, and it'll be kind of, the calls of the directors there, that we might share a little bit more about how the work is progressing. But as I mentioned, we've received really great feedback on this so far, and we're looking forward to supporting them as they move forward and developing offerings. And I hope, and we can go to the next slide if you want. I hope that what's developed at these two SILs may be something that in one format or another could be potentially, if the other SILs are interested, circulated models, programs, support strategies, that kind of thing, throughout the SIL network as potential resources for other centers. I also wanted to just make another point. As I mentioned from the beginning, this is really an important need, and one of the things that I think for me and for others that were involved, this is really bringing into relief is kind of the way that financial stress and instability kind of can be real barriers to goal setting for future and future planning. And so as it relates to fifth core services, it kind of seems to me that supporting proficiency in financial literacy when consumers want it is powerful, and in some cases, maybe even fundamental for achieving community living goals that consumers want to achieve. So I will leave it there, and just by way of closing, saying that we're really looking forward to more opportunities to support work in this space, and really appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with these SILs in providing that support. So Lauren and Sean, I think I'll leave it there, but thanks as always for the opportunity to come share a little bit about the work we're doing with centers across the state. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. Can I ask one quick question before you leave? Is this something that we can replicate in the other 15 centers in the future, or what's the potential there for the other centers to take advantage of some of this?
Yeah, I think I would hope so, Sean. The limitations of the project that we kind of leveraged because it was kind of a larger project that we engaged with. The targeted communities were limited to the two communities that I mentioned, because this was a project that was a collaboration between DARS, George Washington University, Rehab Services Administration was involved. So those communities were kind of pre-selected by virtue of the original project, and so the initial part of this was limited to those two communities. But I really do hope, and this would be something that we would support both SILs that are involved and others who are interested. I really hope that this is something that will result in resources that could be distributed throughout the network. So I hope that that's the case, Sean, and would certainly I would love to be able to support in any way I can that kind of that development.
Good deal. I see Karen raising her hand.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm wondering how you see this fitting in with programs that are already in some of the communities. you know, for instance, in the city of Roanoke, we have a very strong collaboration with some of the banks and the credit unions. And, you know, again, recognizing that CILs are not supposed to be duplicating any services that are out there and sort of not creating a dependency on the CIL, we've taken the tack that this collaboration needs to ensure that the services that they provide are accessible to individuals with disabilities. So I guess I'm just wondering, you know, if that's the case, if there's any way for what you've just talked about to sort of fit in areas like ours.
I think, yes. So if I think that one of the things that some of the substance, Karen, of the training itself and some of the resources that were provided by NDI were really about the ways that consumers can become more comfortable engaging with local banks, for example. And I think that there certainly is, there's an important way forward for me in the way that the CILs, the way that the fact that CILs are staffed and run by people with disabilities who can support others in a peer model, I think that is unique. And I think that offers a lot of promise for engaging with people who may not be comfortable necessarily accessing banking services, maybe underbanked, for example. And I think that's where CILs can be really powerful in helping advocate for people who are not comfortable necessarily or who have not had experience accessing those kinds of products to gain access to that. So I don't know, I hope that answers your question. But I really, to me, this work is really important because it's driven by the unique ways that CILs serve their communities. And I think what is worth noting is that what hopefully will result from this is support that is developed by CILs for other CILs and consumers. And so it's different than kind of, you know, things dropping from the sky and being kind of just generically implemented. So I really do think that there's a unique place that CILs fit into this.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. Are there any other questions for Kevin?
Rob had his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. So, Kevin, you mentioned about the National Disability Institute, but I was just wondering if there are any existing things being done at Nickel or other national programs that can be adapted regarding financial responsibility or financial independence.
That's a good question, Rob. I'm not off the top of my head familiar with any other than kind of trainings that on like ILRU that would be about maybe financial empowerment. I'm really not. That's a great question.
Rob, just as an FYI, I know there's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and this is Karen again. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to say my name. And they have a lot of information that has been specifically targeted for people with disabilities. It's something that we use quite a bit. So, you know, there is other information out there in addition to what the National Disability Institute might have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Karen, thank you for bringing that up. And I just would also like to mention that the Your Money, Your Goals program, which is one of the programs, I think, Karen, that you're referring to, that some of those materials were integrated into this, and those are really valuable resources.
Yes, they are.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate the update.
Thank you very much.
I think the next thing on the agenda is a short break. Is that correct, Lauren?
Yes, you are running ahead, so you definitely have the 5 minutes if you need to take a break.
Yep, I do. I'm going to run and get something to drink real quick. So let's
Please do.
11:50. So let's go ahead for a 10-minute. Can we get back at noon? Okay, hit the pause button.
Sounds good, thank you.
I felt bad, I felt like maybe I should like look at my screen and because you're talking. It's like you're on broadcast.
No, I mean, I have plans, so I just wanted to.
Well, at least it's.
Yeah, I don't know what they did.
I'm pretty sure, our names may be on top. I'm breaking it, y'all breaking it, so, okay, David is here, he's going.
All right, I'll keep an eye out for him.
I mean, things seem to be going okay.
'Cause I
gotta just leave the computer.
Yeah,
Is that
I need a
okay?
battery thing, because I don't have.
Oh, you need a charger.
Yeah.
You can use mine,
Oh, can I? Yeah.
Yeah, you can use mine. David is here, he's hooking up with his laptop. I will let Chris know. He's gonna let him in, because I have to, yeah, good. Let me get some of that.
Worst case, yeah. Okay. That'll be easy for me to do.
Okay, awesome, thank you,
But
Becky.
I'll be ready.
Okay. Thank you so much, Becky.
My pleasure. Wanted to ask you,
I don't think so. Let me.
We're still live.
Yes, but I muted the lights, but let me make sure.
Kevin on a hot mic.
You guys have anything else?
I didn't realize you were working today.
I'm trying not to swear. Took him in. Of course, when I married him, I became theirs. Then when they realized who I was, and my home, they sort of got him as well. She's, I don't know, she's all about him. So this is soon, I was there. Charlotte, call me and I told you.
I'll let her know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking to the Lord yesterday and he said.
Charlotte's in the meeting now. Charlotte's and Elizabeth's both.
Right. Yeah, my dad's not in. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My son. Oh, did you ever get to go visit? I know at one point you were visiting.
And last week, we were together. And it was wonderful to be together, but so many things. Health wise, personal life, drama wise, health.
I think he's there.
I've let him in.
Oh,
Okay. I didn't even see it.
I
I didn't even see it come
good.
up.
If I don't see y'all, I might see y'all, but I just gonna pick them up and do whatever I can do.
So that's like, it's like with Trish now. And she's got to listen. So, you know. God, just, she's in such pain. She can do nothing but delay. And yesterday when I was with her after they changed all of her, she has such bad sores because she's been in bed for so
His
long.
mic is unmuted and it's clear they're having a personal discussion.
Because she's talking about us.
Maybe. The room might, when I came back.
Is he not muted?
Oh, that's,
Thank you so much.
yes.
Get together in about 2 more minutes.
I know what you'd already in church. I just, whatever. But you'd have to have. That'd be awesome. So anyway, when he posted that, it's so. I don't know if I can do this. Well, I can do it, have to do it, but. Okay. You got there before?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be here probably for 1:30, because it's at 1 o'clock, yeah, 1:30. So enough time to get back home before 2:30.
Well, if we run into problems, we should be able to do that.
Are we ready to pull things back together? I see thumbs up. Good. What was that, Lauren?
I believe you're looking good from my view as far as everybody's seemingly back at their stations, so.
Okay. Well, this is Sean again. Let's move forward. The next item on the agenda is the executive committee report. The good news is this will be a brief report because we didn't have time to do too very much. But we did talk about some items, one of which is the work that's being done at lower PD 9 by DRC. They're having some staff turnover, and it's slowing down some of the progress that was being made there. So there's a motion that's coming out of the executive committee to basically have the executive committee help review the application from DRC for the next spill and request additional reporting or try and have some guidance on what we need to do to get out of the work that's being done there at DRC. I don't know if Lauren wants to add anything else.
No, that was it. And I think that you all had 3 components to the motion, which was to review the grant application. Roche will continue the financial oversight as I have been, and increased reporting requirements.
Yeah, I forgot that second one. Thank you, Lauren. Since it was a motion coming out of committee, I don't think we need a second, but are there any questions or concerns or thoughts on the this? So Lauren, on the voting, how do you want to do that? Do you want to have to do the roll call like we did with the SRC? Or can I just say everybody wave their hands?
No, we need to do roll call, but I think that we need to, you've stated the motion, so we need to have a second, and then we'll do roll call.
Second.
So
All right.
We have our second.
Roll call.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. If you can unmute when you hear your name, this is being done alphabetically, so that'll help you to predict. Leland Brady?
Sorry, yes, I agree.
Thank you. Karen Mikowski-Carney?
Yes.
Brian Montgomery? I need to see if he's on. I think we've lost Brian. All right, Alexis Nichols?
Yes.
Jerry O'Neill? I'll come back. DeSantha Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you. Ed Turner?
Yes, hello.
Thank you. Is Jerry back?
He says he's a yes on chat.
Okay, thank you. If somebody responds in chat, we have to still do it verbally. So thank you. That passes. Thank you.
Okay, so, and the other thing that we were discussing some savings. Actually, we'll get to on that part with the treasurer's report, but there's some savings that we have with conferences, and the executive committee would like to offer reimbursements to the SILs for any for folks that are attending the April conference, up to, I think it was $5,000, a total of $5,000 cumulative for all the SILs together. Since the registration's already closed, we're basically reimbursing for whoever had signed up before, but it'd be great to spend all that $5,000, but I'm afraid we may not be able to. But that would be a recommendation from the executive committee. If there's a second.
Second. Rob, this is second.
Any thoughts or questions? Then we'll do another roll call, Lauren.
We'll do it again. All right. Leland Brady?
Here and yes.
Thank you. Karen Mikowski-Carney?
Yes.
Alexis Nichols?
Yes.
Jerry O'Neill?
Yes.
Thank you. DeSantha Raymond?
DeSantha, are you muted?
Yes, I'm unmuted now. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ed Turner?
Yeah.
All right. That is unanimous. Thank you.
That's all of the executive committee report. We have other things on the agenda later on we'll be talking about, that we were going to talk about with the executive committee too. Next item would be treasurer's report. Since Ken's not with us, Lauren, can you take care of that?
I am happy to. Ken sends his apologies. So you all received the expenditures report. I did try to make it fit into a PowerPoint slide, but that did not work well. So I am going to give you the highlights from this expenditure report. The SILC received an additional $9,494 on August 5th through notice of award from ACL. And that brings the total federal fiscal year 20 funding for Part B up to $467,600. That is a $3,769 increase over your fiscal year 19 Part B funding. These are all federal fiscal year 20 dollars currently. You don't have anything left from 19. It's all fiscal year 20 dollars remaining. So those funds, each grant award it's able to be carried through 2 years. So these funds will be carried through to 21, which we've just started. Not as many expenses for council operations, obviously due to the pandemic and meetings being canceled. That's a large chunk of your operational budget. The fourth quarter payment to DRC for lower PD9 project has not been paid at this time. So we're in the process of reviewing financial reports for that, and I'll keep you updated, but that money has not been expended for the fourth quarter. The amount that is currently unused for conferences as of today is $14,343. $400 will show up in the next cycle, your next expenditure report or first quarter. That's for April registrations. We have 2. So that'll show up next time. And the next item you guys just took care of, which is maybe considering to allow SIL directors or staff to attend conferences. And your expenditures are running approximately 30% below average overall. The federal fiscal year 20 funds will be expended first, and those will go quite quickly when we look at just your contractual obligations of first quarter. And that is it, unless you have questions.
Any questions for Lauren? Then the treasurer's report will stand. Now, remind me, we don't actually approve the treasurer's report with this committee, right?
No.
Okay.
If you want to start something new, Sean, I don't know how people would feel, but.
Yeah. Some committees I'm on, they accept the report or they approve the report, but
yeah.
Thank you for providing it. The next item on the agenda, officer terms. So I, as the chair, I have served my 2-year term, and actually a little bit beyond that because of the COVID lack of meetings and such. So we need to get a nominating committee together fairly quickly. All the other officers are eligible to continue if they wish, but I'd like to have 2 volunteers that can work with Lauren and I guess do a census of folks who might be interested in serving for the next term. We'll actually have the nominations to come up at the next meeting to vote for action at that point. Is that correct, Lauren? Timing wise?
Yeah. Yes.
This is Judy Jackson, and I'm not sure, as an ex officio member, can I serve on a nominating committee or not?
No, I need this to be a nominating committee of voting members. And this is really different. This is different than the way you all usually do it. So it's going to seem strange, but because of the way we conduct meetings, this just has to be the way that it is.
Sure. No worries. I was just going to volunteer to serve if that were allowable. So no worries.
I appreciate it, Judy. That comment wasn't directed to you. That was for everybody, because I know that you're used to a different, your nominating committee has always historically been in person, and it's been in between the executive committee, and then you bring the slate of officers right there that day. So it's just it's requiring more time, and it's just necessary right now.
This is Karen. I'd be willing to help Lauren with that.
I'd also be, this is Rob. I'd also be willing to help Karen and Lauren with that.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you all. Next item is the spill update. Lauren has some wonderful news.
I know Kevin kind of laid it out for you. Your spill is approved. You got a full approval, nothing else needed to be done. And you are one of only 7 states, I believe, out of 56 submissions that were approved without any further conditions needing to be met. So good job. I am so happy, and it's just been really great working with all of you through this process.
I'm going to say good job, Lauren, because you're the rock star that made it happen.
Well, and this is Karen. I've just got to say that I was on the quarterly Office of Independent Living meeting, and they announced the 7 states whose spills were approved, and it was really exciting to be on that call and learn that Virginia's was approved. So great job, Lauren.
Great job, everybody. SIL Network, SILK members, everybody, you've been fabulous. Looking back, I can't believe that we got it all done under the circumstances of needing extra permissions just to have meetings and all of that. You pulled it off without a hitch. Good job.
This is Rob. Could you just, either Lauren or Sean, could you just repeat the, was it 7 out of 50?
7 out of 56.
7 out of 56.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Go ahead, Ed. Did you have something, Ed?
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I agree. I'm really proud of everybody. I think that you have a good spill with some really concrete measurable indicators in there, and it's going to make your life easier as you look at everything and you're reporting on things. It's definitely an accomplishment. So celebrate however you wish.
Okay. Next item is meeting schedule. No, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong agenda that popped up. Yes, meeting schedule, meeting dates for 2021. Lauren, you want that?
Sure. You all have already received this list of dates because I sent it out after our last meeting because I wanted you all to have plenty of time to look at your schedule so that we could revisit this and actually, hopefully, bring a motion to accept this schedule. Now, you'll notice that meetings will only be on Thursday if they are electronic. I have laid out April, July, and October for 2 days in hopes that they'll be in person. I don't think that the January one at this point, unless at any point if the state of emergency is withdrawn, that budget language that's attached to it that makes these virtual meetings possible is also withdrawn unless something else is done. So, but I am thinking that the January 14th is going to be virtual as of now.
Any thoughts or motion or?
Just a question. This is Rob. Just a question. As far as the state of emergency, is that declared or revoked, taken away by the governor, or is that the?
Yes, it's in place until it has no end date on it.
Oh,
currently.
that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
So, Sean, this is Karen, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 2021 proposed meeting dates.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Is there a motion?
I'll stick with that motion.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, we'll do, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I got all excited.
You're okay. Unless there are any comments or questions, go ahead with the roll call.
All right. Leland Brady.
I agree.
Alexis Nichols.
I agree.
Gerald O'Neill.
I agree.
Vasantha Raymond.
I agree.
Rob Targos.
Agree.
And Sean Uck.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so gosh, I keep getting the wrong agenda over here. Nickel and April updates. Lauren?
Yeah, I'll just to give you a short update. Nickel, you were able to send 6 people, and I got some really good feedback that it was an excellent conference, first time being virtual. So, and April is coming up, and you have 2 members registered for that, and I do believe that you will have some reimbursements for SIL directors and staff. So that will be helpful. And if anybody wants to talk about their experience with Nickel, you are welcome to with the recent summer Nickel conference.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some of the sessions or what you thought about it.
This is Rob. As far as technology and hosting the meetings, especially with Tim Fuchs and his team, they did a really good job with that. And the sessions were awesome.
Anybody else wanted to offer experiences?
It was kind of spread out, and it was a hassle getting, remembering things, but it was really good for me because I always learn a lot.
I agree.
Yeah, it was really spread out. So
Yeah, it was. Just remembering when to log in was kind of like, okay, I need to be there.
And because it was spread out, I was able to participate in more presentations.
because so Ed, I think I caught that because it was spread out, you were able to attend, and then I didn't get the last part.
More sessions.
More sessions.
More
Yeah,
sessions.
that was good. It was so good.
Good. Were you all able to talk to people and network? How did that go? I'm really curious about how that component of the conference went, because I know that networking and seeing people that you're used to seeing from other states is important.
This is Rob. Most of my communication with the other members was just in individual chats. But I did make a couple of connections, a couple of people from the sessions.
Well, I remember I made up a banner and posted it online, and also the rally. That was the thing I enjoyed too.
It sounds like everyone enjoyed it, and that's really good. I'm glad that it was great for learning and enjoyable.
It was worth the while, so to say. It was kind of like keeping me on my toes.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed the march, and I'm assuming they didn't have that this year.
Did they substitute something in place of the march? Does anyone know if it participated?
What was the question?
Well, hopefully they'll be in person again for the next year. But the most important thing is we get through this all together and alive. So thank you all for giving your insights.
Looking at the next item would be special reports. We can start with DAR's report. Marcia?
Well, this is Marcia. I think, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And this report will certainly be shorter than last time. On the budget front, we're really in a holding pattern on the state level. As many of you know, our General Assembly is still in a special session. So we're really in a holding pattern there. And on both the federal and the state level, we're really looking at level funding in most instances. And with all of our community-based programs, we've really been really impressed with all the work that's going on. And we've, from the DARS level, the overall agency level, our communication is really focused on making sure that that the efforts to reach out to people with disabilities, to make sure that people who may be in rural areas, who are isolated, have the information and resources they need to get whatever they need to be safe, to access whatever services and supports that they might need. In other initiatives that may have been going on during this pandemic, whether it may be, getting information out about the census or about voting, all of those kinds of efforts. We've been making sure that the programs have the information they need to push that out, get information out about how to get PPE, what resources might be available for that. But some of the most really important advocacy issues that have been out there, or really bringing attention to the plight of folks who are disproportionately impacted, people with disabilities who are either in institutions like nursing facilities. You heard Maureen talking about just a number of really critical advocacy issues about people who are in nursing facilities or other institutions, getting people, just some of the results of people working with nursing facilities to get people out, even some numbers, even a little bit higher than may have been but pre-COVID, working with Medicaid waivers, and really trying to address some of the barriers that have come up during COVID-19. And what we found is that really the Centers for Independent Living have already been on the forefront of those initiatives, and that we've just been really delighted with the stories and the advocacy efforts that they've been sharing throughout this process of just being on the front lines of that advocacy work that's just so very critical, because it's been very hard to get into those facilities or to do that advocacy work when so much has been shut down. And so it's really, truly a crisis. And I think that as we listen to the reports that we heard today, I just wanted to just give one more shout out to some of that work that we heard going on, and encourage you all to really read the reports that you all were sent, because the creativity and innovation going on is really quite remarkable. It's not just a matter of trying to figure out how to do something on Zoom, but it's trying to really work, fight the fight, whether it's trying to change policies or trying to gain access. And so we're really, really excited about a lot of the advocacy work that we see going on throughout this pandemic. And that's really it for my update, both from DARS and also giving the shout out to the Centers for Independent Living.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Any questions for Marcia?
Sean, I had one question. This is Rob. So Marcia, especially with the census and the voting, is it getting more of the buy-in and involvement with the support systems or the families on those issues because of the pandemic?
I think that the critical piece during this pandemic is to get information out throughout any election cycle, and even in past spills. Some of you may have been around long enough. I believe, I can't recall which spill it was, but there was definitely a voting information get resources in one of the spills, maybe, I don't know, I'm going to date myself now, maybe about 10 years ago. So I think making sure that people have the information they need. There have been a variety of polling access initiatives that have occurred in the past. There are a lot of barriers for people with disabilities around voting access, not just physical access, but many more. And as you can well imagine, the pandemic has exacerbated that and made it, exponentially more difficult for people with disabilities to vote. And so really getting information out to people about what their options are and how to do that safely is what's really critically important. And similarly, you mentioned the census, but there were some of those same aspects there about how to make sure that that you get counted and what the reasons for being counted are in terms of how that count goes into to future funding for services. So really, it's all about getting information out to people.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for Marcia? Thank you, Marcia. Next is Eric. Is Eric he's still with us? There he is.
Yes, good afternoon. It's nice to see everyone. Since the pandemic has hit, obviously our services and our offices are also in the same upheaval. We've made some changes to adapt. Currently, our staff is working from home. Some staff will come into the office as needed, but right now the office is technically closed. We only see people by appointment. And so a lot of changes as far as how we provide our services have occurred. The first few things I'd like to talk about to make sure that information for people who are deaf and hard of hearing in that community is accessible. That's a goal. Since COVID hit, we have on our website different resources listed to make sure that they are accessible regarding COVID-19. We've been working on bringing in interpreters for the governor's press conferences since the coronavirus came, making sure that that's all accessible to people in the deaf and hard of hearing community. We have a community services manager who has taken on a couple different hats right now. She's been, of course, working in community services, but also has taken on a new responsibility. She's a temporary access and functional needs chair. And so what that means is she's ensuring that the state response to COVID is accessible for all people with disabilities. So she's been managing that on a work group and in partnership with different organizations who are also concerned about access. And she's been doing a great job and dealing with many issues along those lines. Many people with disabilities get access to that information about COVID-19, and we want to make sure the deaf and hard of hearing community does as well. In relay terms, we've typically seen a reduction in cost and minutes for relay, but now since COVID, those numbers are on the rise, which was very surprising to us. I guess because so many people are staying home and making more phone calls. For interpreting services, that's been ongoing. That has not stopped. Face-to-face appointments have, of course, decreased, but our coordination and assigning of interpreters have gone on through virtual platforms, so people can still stay at home and work from there and have their needs met through video. Court is still providing interpreters. They still have interpreters going into the courts, but they do have a lot of obviously sessions or appointments that have been canceled during the COVID and are now being rescheduled. A lot of services have been suspended. For example, a lot of face-to-face meetings. As far as our technology assistance program and equipment distribution, that's been somewhat on hold for a few months. We have started back to serving consumers in August, and in the same way as our quality assurance screening is going, the VQAS, that's the assessment for interpreters, proficiencies, that's been on hold, and we have recently opened that up again in August. So we're trying to catch up with the backlog of candidates there. All in all, we're doing okay. We have an advisory board meeting scheduled. It was supposed to be in May, and we were supposed to have one in August. Those were both canceled. We do plan to move forward with a virtual meeting. November 4th, I believe, is the date. Yeah, November 4th. So we are planning to have this style of meeting in a Zoom platform with a live stream to YouTube. So that's our plan as the SILF meeting is going, same idea. So I understand that can be a little difficult, but we are going to meet on November 4th. And that's all that I have from my report. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric? Okay. Moving on, DVBI, Judy.
Thank you.
Good morning, or I said good, should say good afternoon, shouldn't I? I have to say that at DBVI, the independent living program continues to work. As I reported last quarter, we were all teleworking. And our teachers were providing services to our individuals via Zoom, Google Meets, whatever. And our teachers were just extremely, extremely creative. Since that time, we've opened up. We are, I believe, all of our offices are now seeing individuals that allow us. We have PPE equipment that we provide for our staff as well as for the individuals in the home. If they want us to come in. Some of our individuals still want us to do things virtually so that we're properly distanced from them. We do check our positivity rates, health positivity rates in the different counties, and our regional managers let us know, and there's a map that they update to let us know where those areas are and then tell us what counties are back in what the governor called, I believe, phase 2, where then our staff just teleworks. But for the most part, we're out seeing consumers, our individuals. We're providing service in every way that's possible. Our teachers continue to provide stellar services. Our deaf-blind program also works with our individuals together with ICANN Connect. We are continuing to do what we need to do. I will, in terms of number served, it's been a little difficult to get those numbers. That I was still working on those, and I will provide those to Lauren as soon as I'm able to grab everything. They've done some work on our AWARE system, and so it's made it difficult for my for me to work with my screen reader to get all of those numbers and get all of that. But I will get that in the next day. However, what I was going to say, that it's difficult to look at where we are, not only because of that, but because a lot of our teachers where consumers want to telework and getting people on the caseload because they've got to sign paperwork. They have to at least, at a very minimum, have a signed application. And so sometimes our individuals who live alone and who have a severe vision loss don't know where to sign. And even when we, outline it or put a sticky note or something, sometimes because our individuals are sometimes older and have trouble remembering what they were told, from the time that they were told and it got mailed. So I'm still in the process of trying to, get all of those numbers about who we've served. But as I said, I should have all of that. We are working on state dollars. And so, as all of us know, that's always a tricky thing for funding, but we're doing the very best that we can and working to provide services and ensuring that, we're utilizing comparable benefits for our individuals that have those comparable benefits. But the one thing that we are committed to is if a comparable benefit is going to delay a service, we're not going to allow that to happen. We're not going to allow the service to be delayed because of a comparable benefit. So we'll figure out a way to do that. Other than that, we're having good times at DBVI. Given the pandemic, we've managed to survive it thus far, and I'll certainly entertain any questions.
This is Rob. So you said that there's no services delay, but that you look for a comparable benefits. Can you just clarify that?
So a comparable benefit is something like Medicare or whatever. So we may have an individual that needs a specific thing, for example. And so maybe it's something like showering. Maybe they've lost enough vision, and so it's difficult for them So, but it's an individual who has Medicare and they want, say, a grab bar or a railing or something in the shower. Well, that's not something that we would normally purchase. We would want to use Medicare. We would want to use a comparable benefit to purchase that. However, if showering is a goal and the comparable benefit is going to take longer to get what we need to be able to teach that goal and for the individual to move on successfully, we're probably going to look at finding we'll find a resource. We'll do something. We'll pay for it, or we'll do something to get that item so that service isn't delayed because of a comparable benefit. But it has to be a goal for that individual.
Got it. Thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other questions for Judy? All right. Thank you, Judy.
Sure.
I will take the next one for the SRC, if I can find my, really the SRC, we met last month and we've been, gone through the same tragedies that the Silk has with not being able to meet and having some difficulties, but a lot of work continues. They did accept the 2020 Consumer Satisfaction Survey or Satisfaction Report. If you'd like a copy, I'm sure Lauren can share it with us. And also they're working on they put a subcommittee together to work on the 2020 annual report, which always, it's a wealth of knowledge, and they most of the time do a great job putting that together. So we'll make sure to get everyone a copy of that when it comes out. Otherwise, that's it. Unless anybody has any questions on the SRC items. Okay. Lauren, you want to take care of the SRC for the DVBI?
Sure. So it's been quite a while, but to give you kind of the same update that I've been giving you, when Raymond Kinney rotated off of the Silk, you all's recommendation was for Ken Jessup to be the Silk representative on the SRC DBVI. There has been a lot of communication between myself and the staff for that council, as well as the Secretary of the Commonwealth. There is a little bit of confusion because Ken was already on the SRC DBVI, but he is rotating off. So it's just a matter of getting everybody on the same page. So I'm hoping that we will have this done by the end of the year. I'm hopeful.
Okay. Jerry, let's talk Vasil.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Vasil has been, in many ways, kind of walking in the same footsteps as most of the other agencies as we continue to adjust and adapt to providing services to our consumers in the community and do it in a safe way that protects our consumers and our employees. And so that's been a significant challenge. All of the centers are doing primarily remote services with their consumers. However, there are a handful that are taking face-to-face interviews by appointment only and utilizing all of their social distancing and sanitizing protocols. So Maureen had mentioned earlier in her update on Part B about the virtual education burnout that people are experiencing, and I think we're seeing some of that in Richmond, and I'm sure that my peers are seeing some of that as well. For folks who were just new to the Zoom process and the mechanics of doing that, the first few months were interesting. They were learning new stuff. we were engaging folks. And now I think for staff and for some consumers, there is a Zoom burnout piece where people are just over it. And I know all the CILs are looking for really new and innovative ways to engage and educate and support our consumers in the community, while acknowledging that people are getting a little tired of sitting in front of the laptop. The other thing that Maureen mentioned and Marcia touched upon really briefly was the nursing home numbers, and the CILs across the state have continued their outreach to nursing homes in an attempt to identify individuals who would be good candidates to transition out into the community and receive their supports in the community, be a little safer in the middle of this pandemic. And the responses have been, we're starting to see, as Maureen pointed out, we're starting to see some improvement in those numbers, but it has certainly been a challenge for a lot of the centers. The nursing homes have gone through kind of the laws of grieving, the steps that you engage in grieving, where initially we would do some outreach and nursing homes wouldn't have anything to do with you. They were kicking people out and not really open to having these kinds of discussions. And then as it has dragged on and CILs have been persistent in their outreach, I think we're starting to get some favorable responses from nursing homes. We're still, it's still difficult to even get a foot in the door, literally, and understandably so. But nursing homes are a little bit more receptive, I think, to at least having a conversation about what that would look like. So I think the CILs in Virginia have just worn people down with their outreach and just touching base. And the Part B folks have done a really good job at establishing relationships through the years so that the phone calls touching base are professional and cordial, and that's paying some dividends now as we are identifying people to move into the community. So by far the biggest issue that VASIL has been working on has been the distribution of our CARES dollars. And we have been like a dog with a bone and submitted 755 submissions for MOUs to ACL for their final approval. And they have given us a final approval. And we have had webinars and conference calls to share with other CIL directors the process in doing this. So we are cautiously optimistic that we will be able to assist consumers in other catchment areas with our CARES dollars and make an impact, and be able to support folks by using some of the new processes and paperwork stuff that Maureen has actually done a really good job at pushing that through and developing a lot of the protocols that we've been doing. So she deserves a shout out for that. But that has been a significant amount of our time has been talking about how we could share some of those resources across the state. And so that is coming to fruition. So we are getting ready to, we have gone through the orientation piece about paperwork and eligibility and that kind of stuff. And conversations have started with other centers, and those conversations will continue and services will expand. So those are the big updates that we've had from VASIL. And I'll stop for a second, see if Karen wants to add anything, and entertain any questions.
So I have a couple of things, but one of the things I'd like to share with you, if I can, we have a person on staff who's very talented, and several months ago, he developed a jingle for Blue Ridge Independent Living Center. We weren't sure what we were going to do with the jingle, but over this period, we got a new phone system, and they gave us 3 choices of music, and we were not happy with that. And all of a sudden, a light bulb went on in my head, and I said, oh, that jingle! So when you call our office, you will hear one of our staff with this jingle, and I'm going to try to hold my phone up to my microphone to see if you can hear it. Okay. Can you hear it?
Can you put on speakerphone?
Blue Ridge Independent Living Center. Happy to help spring, summer, fall, and winter. Non-residential people don't live there. They are instrumental with home health care. They help you to succeed with the right resources. Independent living skills training and courses.
Nice.
Information and referral, home modifications, increased accessibility for clarification, housing assistance, service facilitation, plus social security representation, assistive technology in good condition, loan closet, advocacy and transition, a match for the ages, like cookies and milk. Make the call, pay a visit, see the people that thrill. Blue Ridge Independent Living Center, 1502B, Williamson Road, Roanoke, Virginia, 24012, 540-342-1231.
So it's been really interesting when we've gotten phone calls and they end up on hold. I've picked up the phone and I've heard people going, independent living is the name of the game. So we're thinking about seriously copywriting the jingle and possibly even using it as a fundraiser for the other 400 sills around the nation. I don't know whether anything will happen with that, but thought I'd share that and just make you smile. The only thing I was going to add was that on a personal note, I've been serving as the Independent Center of Northern Virginia's interim director since around the middle of July. We are anticipating that they will have a director within the next few weeks, so that's kind of exciting. It has been real interesting serving as interim director virtually. I've done this before, but never virtually. So that's taken all of us a little while to get used to. The other thing I was going to let you know is we did, through some of the funding we received, we installed a public Wi-Fi because we know a lot of our consumers don't have internet access. So if they want to, they can come and park around the back of our building and have access to high-speed internet. We've advertised that and made sure that our consumers knew about it. We also have our Kiwanis Action Club up and going. That's a club that had been meeting here. It was specifically for people with traumatic brain injuries, but we've expanded the eligibility, and about 75% of the members just went to the Kiwanis lunch this week and were introduced, and really excited about the leadership possibilities and the volunteer opportunities for individuals in that club. And the only other thing that we have going on is we're having a major renovation to the front of our office. We're not exactly sure what happened, but we have these huge store type windows and they were starting to bow in. So right now we have plywood and 2x4s up in the front of our building, and they're going to have to redo the wall. And so we're hoping that gets done before the cold weather, because trying to heat the outdoors is not working. So that's it from Blue Ridge Independent Living Center and ECNV. Just thought I'd share. And again, if you want to hear the jingle, just call our number and ask to be placed on hold.
This is Marcia. I just want to say, please call and listen to the whole thing because it's a lot longer and it's really awesome. And then as, on your bowing windows, didn't you have like a car or something run into those windows before me?
No, that was the other side of the building. We're not exactly sure what happened with this, but I mean, it was unbelievable the way that they were bowing, and we were afraid they were going to come in or just fall out. So it's always something at Blue Ridge Independent Living Center.
Indeed. Thank you, Karen and Jerry. We're pushing through this agenda.
Well, this is Rob. I have a question. this is more for Jerry. As far as the virtual, any of the virtual stuff going on, has there been any tracking of people that either don't have the equipment they need, or getting them?
So I don't think I got the whole part of your question, Rob, but I think I know where you were going. Are we tracking people who may not have the equipment they need to engage us that way?
Right.
I believe all the SILs, at least initially, did a reach out to see how people were doing physically, if they needed anything, if they needed PPE, anything they could offer assistance with. And then the second round of checkups were, do you have what you need to connect to the outside world? For centers that had a significant youth component, those questions were directly asked. Do you have a laptop? Do you have internet access? Do you have a way to connect with services on the outside virtually? And if not, the centers were providing technology and supports in order to make that happen. And those things are actually included in the CARES dollars as well. So we're not pulling money out of the general revenue for SILs that have the CARES money. They can pay for technology for people with disabilities that need it to connect outside because of COVID. That's a big condition. We can pay for that with CARES money. So yes, we are reaching out and providing people who need the technology with the technology help.
Awesome, thank you.
Was that your angle, Rob?
That was,
yeah.
That was exactly my angle, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Jerry or Karen?
Sorry, Sean. Ed Turner has written a couple of things in the chat. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that ECI Norfolk has started live services in early September. And I also mentioned that I had heard that they have a designated, this is really creative, they have a designated safe area for employees with children so that they can be at work and their children can do their virtual learning safely. So I thought that that was also a really unique solution to an issue.
Thank you, Ed. Looking at the next item, I guess now's the time for, is that Maureen? Go ahead, Maureen.
Sean, may I please? I'd like to just give a little bit of information about what Ed raised, and thank you, Ed, for mentioning that. The Independent Center has started what we call the ECI, Independent Center Incorporated, the school club. And as Ed said, this is for parents whose children are still in virtual schooling. And we have set up a space with everyone it's about 10 feet separated from each other. We've hired a staff person to facilitate it. It is very interesting. All of the, PPE is provided. All of the safety issues are being addressed. And it's a way for the students to have somebody with them to monitor them getting in and out of their virtual learning. If they have problems during virtual learning, for them to be able to have someone to assist them with lunch and exercising and things of that nature. And it's really been an interesting process. And I think we'll continue to evolve as schools continue to make changes and as the students and the parents who work at ECI continue to make changes. So we've tried to put some structure around it while realizing that we need a lot of flexibility because we have children from the age of 4 to 10 or 12 years old. And they come from 3 different school divisions with 3 different virtual learning schedules. So it is a little bit challenging for the facilitator, but the parents seem to appreciate it. And we have students who just, anyways, they're wonderful, just wonderful, delightful to have in the building. They are separated from everyone else. They don't, traverse throughout the building, but it's interesting. So thank you, Ed, for mentioning it.
It's great access for helping the employees. Is there any new business or any other business from the membership that we didn't talk about today?
This is Alexis. I have other business.
Okay, Alexis.
If you could give me just 1 second to pull up my notes, that'd be good. So the Arc of Virginia is having a virtual reality tonight. Virtual rally. I'm sorry. There's been so many virtual things going on recently. So we're having a virtual rally, and I don't know if you guys are aware, but people with DD have only gotten 1% of the COVID relief funding. And so tonight we're hosting this rally to show our elected officials that people with developmental disabilities are worth more than 1%. So we're asking that you log on tonight at 6:45. It's from 6:45 to 7:15. You don't have to do anything. We just need bodies in the room. We just need faces. We just need to show people that, like I said, people with developmental disabilities are worth more than 1%. We're trying to get 1,000 people to log on, and there will be speakers. There'll be 3 different speakers who are going to represent people with DD. And so that's that. I will send the link to Lauren if you're interested in coming or sharing it with your group. Like I said, we're trying to get as many people as possible just to log on with all your devices, every single device that you have in the house, just to prove our point. So I will send that out to Lauren, and hopefully you can distribute that to the rest of the members here.
That's great.
This is Lauren. I absolutely will.
Thank you.
Sure.
And
okay, Rob.
Sorry, this is Rob. Just for clarification, what was the time on the rally? Can you repeat that again?
So the rally is from 6:45 to 7:15.
Okay.
And we're asking that you log on at 6:45 or a little bit before.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else from membership? Looking at the next one, the achievements barriers to report. I think first and foremost, we need to make sure the first achievement we report is an approved spill for the next 3 years.
Yes.
Without amendment or revisions, I guess you should say. Any other ideas or thoughts that we need to share with Lauren? You'd like to share with Lauren?
I think COVID continues to be an issue for just about everything. So, it goes without saying, but we probably should say it.
I agree. Anything else? Well, then let's go to the next item, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? And I will say that the executive committee members, you do need to stay on the line on the Zoom as we're getting ready to go into closed session for Lauren's evaluation.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Rob.
Second.
Second by Karen. Okay. Do we have to do a roll call for that, or can we just vote by closing off?
You don't actually need a motion to adjourn if there's no further business. So if that's okay, we'll
stand adjourned. Thank you all. It's good seeing you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, hang tight. There's a couple of logistics that have to be taken care of on this end as far as what's recording and what's live. So give me a moment to take care of that for you all.
Is Ed on the executive committee? No. Okay.
And Sean, since it's just you and I on the line with regard to the to the last issue in the executive committee.
No, I'm here, Rob. This is Karen.
Oh,
Yeah, we have
you're two. Okay.
several still on still.
We also have the ex officio members, I believe.
So do we have to, when we make the motion to go in, does someone have to read the official why we're going into the executive?
Yes, I have that, and I sent that out to you all, so you have the declaration to be read. So whenever you are ready, and then once you go into closed session, I'll let you know as I'm leaving, and somebody can text me when I can come back to the room to get my stuff, okay?
Okay.
Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
You can go ahead and read this statement, and then we're getting everything taken care of on this end.
Then I'm trying to get it open again. Do I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss the performance and evaluation of the Silk administrator as allowed under the Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A1?
I make a motion.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Thank you. You want to do a roll call?
Sorry, give me a second. I'm typing with the captioner now. I'll do that for you, but you guys are gonna have to, once I leave the room, it's all on you, okay?
Yep.
So Sean Utt.
Yes.
Karen Carney.
Yes.
Marcia Dubois.
Yes, and Lauren, please email me your cell phone number. I don't know if I have it.
Okay, I will. So one of you has it, I know. And is Judy Jackson still on?
Nope.
Okay, Ed, this is a closed session. The meeting adjourned. Did you get kicked out of the meeting off of Zoom, off of the Zoom call?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're all done for the day. Go celebrate that bill.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, Ed.
All right, I just need to make sure, I'll give you the go ahead as soon as I've made sure that things have stopped recording.
We're still live on YouTube. Lauren, is Eric still on that?
So you guys do interpret.
Yeah, it doesn't have an option to stop it. I'm thinking that when we shut down the meeting or when we leave the meeting, it's probably like how it triggers.
We need to stop the live because they're in closed session.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, did you can do that? The host can do it.
So YouTube?
I think so, yeah. You just